Well, if ever there was a This Week in Destiny blog post that summed up This Week in Destiny pretty well, it would be This Week in Destiny for the 22nd of June. And so we have a very, very small update today from Bungie. Firstly, they talk about fishing, the fishing rally quest, and some of the stuff going on in the game this week, which we'll touch on in a bit more depth. They also refer to Bungie Day, which is coming up on July 7th, and the Bungie Day Giving Festival, and they recognise some recent community backlash about some heavily inspired art that we saw in one of the cutscenes recently, and then it pretty much comes down to known issues, with a tiny hint for a preview of the mid-season weapon tuning updates coming in July. So, as is tradition, we'll break it down today, guys, but safe to say it is a very small update, so I'm sorry I couldn't bring you more, but hey, this is the TWID, let's get into it. And so first up for today, just in case you guys didn't see my previous video, but Bungie help tweeted that they've resolved an issue where the new exotic fish, the Whispering Moth Carp, had not unlocked at the weekly reset as expected. And so it confirms a couple of things. Firstly, we can now get the second exotic fish out of a total of 4 for the season, but their wording also indicates that these fish will roll out on a weekly basis. So next week on the reset, we should get the third, and the following week will be the fourth. So that's positive, but it also appears that these exotic fish tie into an upcoming quest, or essentially the quest has already begun. So this is for a hidden exotic weapon this season as far as we know, and if you catch the Whispering Moth Carp in the Throne World this week, upon putting it into the tank in the helm, it'll drop something called the Broken Blade of Strife. And once we have that item, we can actually deposit it into one of the statues in the deep dive activity. And there are a total of 3 of these statues hidden before the final boss encounter for deep dive. So it's looking very, very likely that next week we'll be able to put the second one in, and the following week we'll be able to get the final exotic fish and activate the last statue in Deep Dive, which as I mentioned is actually associated with an exotic weapon for this season. So we won't talk any more about it, but obviously the process has begun. If you do want extra details though, and gameplay of what to do, I'll link my video down below from earlier on. Obviously there is a fair amount of RNG with catching the exotic fish, so if you want to get access to the encounter in Deep Dives that drops the exotic weapon in a couple of weeks' time, it will be worth trying to make progress on this on a weekly basis. So I'll link a video down below that has all of the details for that. Something else to mention right here though, that's going around in the community at the moment, and Julian Felona on Twitter shared that a couple of years ago they posted some fan art to Bungie.net, and it turns out pretty much a carbon copy of that fan art actually appeared in the cutscene that we got at the weekly reset this week. Obviously that cutscene is a major story piece, which acts pretty much as the finale piece for the story for Lightfall, but there's been a bit of drama because, of course, this was initially fan art, and it would appear that there is a very, very significant amount of inspiration that Bungie have taken in reproducing that image as part of the cutscene this week. And a lot of people in the community do take issue with this, although Bungie have responded and they said, we've discovered that an external vendor that helped to create the cutscene mistakenly used this art as a reference, assuming it was official Bungie art, so we've reached out to the artist to apologize for the mix-up and to credit and compensate them for their awesome work. And so obviously it's very good that Bungie are making it right. Still think it's pretty wild that it ended up happening in the first place. I don't know, maybe these external vendors are Googling for inspiration when making these cutscenes. I still think it's kind of a weird one, but at least Bungie are making moves to make it right, and give us any thoughts you may have on it down below. Now though, moving on to This Week in Destiny, they do make reference to the fishing rally this week, and they say players might want to visit Hawthorne, and we've heard that her people found something in the fishing ponds on the Throne World. Go spend some time there and see what bites. Have fun fishing, Guardians. So that is section 1 of This Week in Destiny. Section 2 though is about the Bungie Day Giving Festival, and they say Bungie Day is on July 7th, and we're excited to welcome back the Bungie Day Giving Festival for its 4th edition. So this year's campaign returns with some of our biggest incentives, prizes, and surprises yet, and the festivities will kick off on Thursday, July 6th at 10 AM PST with our first featured stream, and the fun will roll through to July 23rd. They say there'll be more ways than ever to get involved with this year's campaign, and so stay tuned for a special blog post next Wednesday, June 28th, for full details on how to register, what we can earn and win, and to learn about the ways that our continued support has created real, impactful, tangible good on the world. And so there'll be a blog post about the kind of charitable side of Bungie Day next week. And Bungie Day can be sort of an interesting one, but I guess we'll simply have to wait and see what they have planned. Section 3 of the TWAB though is about known issues. There we go, I've called it the TWAB again already. And they say they are aware of an issue where the Battle Rhythm Seasonal Challenge incorrectly instructs players to defeat targets anywhere in the system. And they add that the challenge can be successfully completed in Crucible, Gambit or Vanguard ARPs, so it's playlist specific. They also say that the Strand Slayer Crucible bounty isn't progressing from Strand primary weapon kills, and that players can die from finishers if the enemy dies before the finisher animation completes. They recognise as well that the Efficient Angler Seasonal Challenge is progressing inconsistently, and that the Crucible Competitive Placement Series isn't dropping the Mercurial over each sniper rifle. Also, Khepri's Horn is still temporarily disabled, Helm of Saint 14 isn't functioning as expected, and they reiterate that players can still get stuck out of the final boss area after self-reviving in the Ghost of the Deep dungeon. So that does it for known issues this week. There are more that they've highlighted previously and still haven't been fixed just yet, so it'll be interesting to see when we get another hotfix for the season. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. They also say though that get ready for the upcoming Bungie Day Giving Festival, and we should keep an eye out for a preview of the mid-season weapon tuning updates which are coming in July. And that does it! Probably the shortest TWAB, and of course the shortest TWID that we've ever had. But it could be worth keeping an eye out for some of those updates next week. I certainly look forward to a preview of more changes that we're going to see in July, and of course, we at least have the confirmation that the mid-season balance patch will be dropping next month. Otherwise though, that does it for the update today. And despite the minuscule update, if you feel like being nice, a rating below really does help us out. Once again, be sure to check out my previous video if you want to make progress on the exotic quest for this season. Otherwise though, cheers for tuning in guys, and I hope you have an awesome day.